Farms, and we're going to talk today about bread making, specifically gluten-free and dairy-free bread making. So go ahead and subscribe to this channel and save this video because you're going to want to come back later and watch it. Okay, so let me say first of all, do not be intimidated by gluten-free and dairy-free bread making. You can make delicious bread without the gluten and without the dairy. It does require many more ingredients, but I'm going to show you some shortcuts and different things that we've learned in our processes that will help you do it and not feel overwhelmed. Okay, let's talk about the ingredients you're going to need. Again, once you get all this stuff, you're going to have it. So don't die when I tell you all these ingredients because it's a lot. Okay, you're going to need some active dry yeast. Make sure that it is a gluten-free option. You're going to need a little bit of sugar. We just use white sugar, but you can use the sugar of your choice. Now, flours, you're going to need quite a few. White rice flour, arrowroot flour. You can sub tapioca starch instead of that if you prefer that. Potato starch, sorghum. If you want to do almond flour instead of that, you can. I have not tried that. Flaxseed meal, and then you're going to need a little xantham gum, baking powder, and some salt. And then 3 more ingredients you're going to need, the wet ingredients. Your oil of choice, we usually use olive oil, but you can do avocado oil, some apple cider vinegar, and egg whites. So we're going to use our fresh eggs for this. Okay, so let's talk again about all these different flours you have to use, because I feel like this is the overwhelming part. Like all of these Bob Red Mill flours, this is the part that overwhelmed me when I would try to make a loaf of bread. And I would be like, it's too much. So to prevent that, this is what we figured out. Grab your measuring cups and grab all these out. Like buy them all and get them all. And then we basically did just like a little row, just like what I've got here. We pulled out our measuring spoons and then we got out these food saver bags. And then we would put the correct amount of each ingredient in the bag, and then we would vacuum seal it. And we did this to we would do 10 or 15 at a time, and that way when I wanted to make a loaf of bread, all of my dry ingredients were in here ready to go. The only thing I had to do for flour was pull this out. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, instead of having to pull out these 8 ingredients every time you want to make a loaf of bread, you pull out this. Okay, so now that you know that shortcut, let me show you how to actually make the bread. So before I actually start the recipe, I like to get my pan ready, and I like to use a little cast iron bread pan, and I buy these pre-cut parchment sheets. They're just easier, and you can find them at the Dollar Tree. They're easy. And you want to just put that down in there like this. And some people have fancy clips. I've usually just cut the excess like this, but you can do this how you want it. But in addition to using the parchment paper, I also give it a spray with a little bit of avocado oil, just so that the bread doesn't stick. Just like that. Now we're ready. First things first, we need to proof the yeast. So we need warm water. It needs to be between around 95 and 110 degrees. So we're good. So I'm gonna add some warm water into this bowl. Actually, I could have done it in that measuring cup, but either way. And then I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of sugar. And I'm gonna add 1 little package of that yeast I showed you earlier. Again, make sure that yeast is gluten-free, and 1 packet of this is the perfect amount. I'm gonna give that a little stir. And then I'm just gonna set it under the light on my stove right here. And we're gonna let that sit about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so while that yeast is proofing, we're gonna pull out that mixture that you've already made and you got vacuum sealed up, and we're gonna put it in the mixer here and just get it mixed up gently. Okay, so we're just gonna pour this in here. Make sure you get it all. And we're gonna put this on the lowest setting just to get it mixed up, and we're gonna let that go for about 2 minutes. While that's mixing up, let me tell you the amounts of each item you're gonna need here. White rice flour, 1 cup, 3/4 cup of the arrowroot, and 3/4 cup of the potato starch. 1/2 cup of the sorghum, 1/4 cup of the flaxseed meal, 2½ teaspoons of xantham gum, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And again, all that I just told you is what's in that packet that I just pulled out. So this has finished mixing, so I'm gonna add the wet ingredients. So I have 3 egg whites here. I don't really have a fancy way to get egg whites out other than just crack the egg and get the white out, so I didn't show that. But get the whites and add 1/4 cup of your oil of choice, and then 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. And this is gonna be the wet part of the mix. So we're gonna add this right into the blender here. And it's gonna be thick. Let this go for about 2 minutes. And check on your yeast, and it looks like everything looks good. We're gonna be adding that next. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the yeast in here while this is still mixing. Now it's starting to smell like bread. Okay, so this is finished. You don't want to over blend it, and it is thick and it is sticky. So just get it off the best you can. And one thing to keep in mind is that if you wet your hands, it won't stick to your hands as bad. Okay, if you get this out of here into your pan with a rubber spatula, you'll see that it's easier. So just gently transfer it into your pan. Just make sure that you do this evenly. It's a little tricky, but you can, again, use your hands at the end to kind of smooth it out. So I'm gonna come back and get this. I'm just gonna stop there. Wet my hands. And kind of start flattening this out a little bit. Okay. Okay, so we have this in our pan. It's pretty even overall. So we want to keep that in a warm place for 45 minutes or until it rises just a little bit above the pan. Now, before you set it in a warm place, what I like to do is get a piece of plastic wrap and oil it with your olive oil and just lay it over it. That keeps it nice and moist. This is kind of awkward to do, but it really does help. Just kind of oil that plastic like this. and then lay that right over the actual dough like this. And then I like to turn my oven on. You can see it's on a low temperature, but I don't set it in the oven. I do set it right here, just so that it's warm. You don't have to do this, but I like to keep it in a pretty warm spot, and that way it's got a little heat coming off the oven and it stays warm for 45 minutes. Set your timer and we'll check back in 45. One tip that you need to know when you're measuring out your flours for gluten-free recipes, really any recipes, but especially gluten-free recipes, the amounts really do matter. So instead of getting your measuring cup and scooping down in there, this is not the way to do it. You're gonna end up with not the correct amount. What you wanna do is either pour or gently, like get with a spoon, the amount that you need, like this. Just overfill your measuring cup, that's fine. And then get a straight edge and straighten it off like that. That's gonna give you the most precise measurement rather than doing the old, like, just grabbing it from in the package. So don't forget that, it's important. Just checking on my bread, it looks good. I actually turned the oven off. There's a little bit of heat coming off of it, but not too much. Just enough to keep it warm. We got 33 minutes left. Okay, so this looks good. I think we're ready to put it in the oven. It's just a tiny bit above the pan, you can see there. It's ready to go in the oven, and it's gonna bake for about 60 minutes. But after 30 minutes, you're gonna wanna cover it with a piece of aluminum foil just so the top doesn't burn. Okay, so that bread has been cooking 30 minutes. Now we're gonna put a piece of aluminum foil over it for the last 30. Oh, that's looking good. But we don't want it to brown too much on top. Thirty more minutes. Timer just went off. I'm pulling it out of the oven. Let's see what we got. Let me show y'all. It looks perfect. Looks great. So I'm gonna let it sit for, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes just to cool off, and then I'm going to get it out of the pan and then let it cool for about 10 minutes before I cut into it, if I can wait that long. Okay, so this is cooled just a little bit, so I'm going to pull it out of here. This is why the parchment paper is super convenient. It helps you get it out really easy. And then put it over here, get it out of that paper. We'll cut it in about 10 minutes. Now that looks good. You should probably wait until this is totally cool to cut it, but I can't wait. It smells too good and looks too good. So I'm gonna cut my slice here. And I just got, oh, I didn't get out a butter knife. I just got a little piece of butter. This is not dairy-free butter, but I'm putting a little bit of regular butter on it. And I got this thing, actually, who gave me this? Perhaps my mom gave me this. If I'm wrong, correct me on that. I would love to know how you guys store your bread. How do you store your bread? This is a Tupperware thing, and I like this because you can butt this up to the edge of the bread and it keeps it fresh, and it's got a little air vent up top. So I like to store it in this. I think Vivi got me that, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, let's taste the bread. Perfect. You can't tell it's gluten-free. It's great. This will make great sandwiches, toast, or just a snack like this. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know how you guys store your bread too. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. And if you hadn't subscribed, go ahead.